All right, today we're cracking open a file that honestly reads like a movie script for the end of the world. It's a newly declassified document that lays out step by step how to kick off a nuclear war. And yeah, we're gonna break it all down. So, let's get right into it. This doomsday checklist, it's not some crazy device from a spy thriller. Nope. This was a real thing, a real document, and it shows the incredibly precise, almost bureaucratic way you'd go about starting a global thermonuclear war. Wild, right?
So, what was the instruction manual for World War III? I mean, we all have this image in our heads, right? A single, giant red button on the president's desk. But the reality? Well, it was way more mundane, and honestly, a lot more terrifying. It was an actual, honest-to-goodness instruction manual, buried for decades in declassified records.
And this document from 1964 was called the Emergency War Order Checklist. It was used by the Strategic Air Command, or SAC. Now, this wasn't just some vague set of guidelines. Oh no, it was a step-by-step manual spelling out the exact mechanics for how America's entire nuclear arsenal would go to war. Okay, so to really get how this whole checklist worked, you have to understand the system it was part of. Think of it like climbing a ladder. Each step you take gets you closer and closer to the edge, from a state of total peace right to the absolute brink of annihilation. And that ladder is called DEFCON. You've probably heard of it from movies, right? Defense Readiness Condition. But this was no Hollywood invention. DEFCON was a very real 5-level alert system that got all US forces on the same page, on a common timetable. And everything starts at the bottom, at DEFCON I, which is just normal peacetime. So as you climb the ladder, things get more and more serious. At DEFCON 4, you're ramping up intelligence gathering. At DEFCON 3, you're actually assembling battle staffs and getting the ICBMs ready. By the time you hit DEFCON 2, it's go time for generating all forces, bombers and missiles on high alert. And DEFCON 1? Well, that's it. Everything is in a cocked configuration, ready for an immediate launch order. And listen, this wasn't just some theoretical drill. This actually happened. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, the Strategic Air Command went all the way to DEFCON 2. Think about what that means. All non-essential flying just stopped. They had 1,436 bombers and 145 ICBMs ready to launch. And get this, there was a continuous stream of 65 B-52 bombers armed with nukes in the air 24/7, always. That's how close we came. So, how in the world do you communicate orders this huge, this world-ending, without any mistakes? A wrong word could mean catastrophe. The answer? You create a secret language, a system of codes designed to manage the whole process with, frankly, chilling efficiency. And the whole system really boiled down to two simple, color-coded types of messages. On one hand, you had blue dot messages. Think of these as the get ready commands. They covered everything before the shooting starts, changing decon levels, moving forces around, but then you had red dot messages. And those were for one thing only: execution. They were used when war was about to happen or was already underway to authorize the launch. And you can see just how methodical this was in the 1964 plan. Red Dot 1 launched the bombers that were already on daily alert. Red Dot 2 launched the next wave. Red Dot 3 was a mass launch of everything available. But here's the key. They all flew to a fail-safe point, a holding pattern. It was a massive show of force. The point of no return, the one that really mattered, was Red Dot 4. The message was just one word: execute. That's when the ICBMs would launch, and all those bombers would leave their holding patterns and fly to their targets. But here's the thing. This highly organized, almost slow and steady system from the 60s, it didn't last. Technology moves fast, right? And as it evolved, so did the countdown to Armageddon. By the 1970s, the whole system was way faster, more automated. And we know this because of guys like Brees Blair, a former Minuteman missile launch officer. His accounts from inside the silo give us this incredible, chilling look at just how fast things were becoming. And this is a really crucial point. Look at how the meaning of Red Dot 1 changed. In 1964, it was a get-ready order, sending bombers to a holding point, not to their targets. But by the early 70s, Red Dot 1 was now the direct execution order. It meant carry out the entire war plan. And the real kicker? While it needed presidential authorization, the actual codes to validate the order were held by the military, not by any civilian. Think about that for a second. So why the change? It was because of a new strategy called launch on warning. Basically, the fear was that enemy missiles could take out our missiles while they were still in the ground. So the solution was launch our missiles the absolute second we detect that the enemy has launched theirs. This squeezed the decision-making time from hours down to just a few minutes. And that's what's so terrifying. It massively increased the risk of an accidental war, a computer glitch, a flock of geese on a radar screen. That could now be the trigger for Armageddon. Okay, so we've talked about the system, the codes, the strategy, but what about the people? What was it actually like to live inside this incredibly efficient, unbelievably terrifying system? What was it like being one of the cogs in this machine? I mean, just imagine this. The responsibility for 200 Minuteman missiles could end up on the shoulders of just 2 junior officers in a bunker deep underground. Bruce Blair talks about this, how he and his crewmate didn't have the authority to launch, sure, but, and this is a huge but, they had the technical ability to fire up to 50 missiles all by themselves. The fate of millions could literally come down to their judgment in the middle of total chaos. And if that's not crazy enough for you, get this. The super secret codes for ending the world, they weren't always so secret. Bruce Blair says that the Red Dot 1 command and mission were compromised at least twice, once by a spy and another time by another officer. This means the Soviets probably knew the code word for go. They could have been listening in, ready to launch right along with the US, or maybe even before. And this just leads to some moments of really dark, surreal humor. Blair talks about living in Washington, D.C., and opening the newspaper, and nearly having a heart attack. Why? Because the local department store, Hecht's, was advertising a red dot sale. Can you even imagine? Seeing the code word for Armageddon being used to sell, I don't know, discounted towels. Okay, so let's pull all of this together. We've gone through the checklist, the codes, the human element. What does it all tell us about how this whole system was meant to work? The biggest takeaway here is that starting a nuclear war wasn't about one person pushing one button. It was a huge, complex, bureaucratic system. It was a machine, really, with so many moving parts, all designed and trained for one single purpose: methodical, rapid, and overwhelming execution. So you have this perfect system, this perfectly oiled machine designed to start a war. But here's the final haunting question it leaves us with. Could it have stopped one? The checklist lays out every single step for how to begin the end of the world. But was there a checklist for how to pull back from the brink? This look into our past is a chilling reminder of just how thin that line really was, and maybe, just maybe, still is.